ولقد سبقت كلمتنا لعبادنا المرسلين.
It is considered the most important story in the world right now. We're at war with ISIS. What media leaders may not be telling you is how world media, including US media, frame ISIS. What are the different type of fears being conveyed in the news coverage? Are the media overreacting in regards to threats and violence in the Middle East? Join me today, and today only, as I talk about ISIS in Axiom in Media with Abraham Corona. Greetings and thank you for joining me. I will discuss ISIS and the fear this terrorist organization has caused worldwide, and how it is being covered in the media. I will be analyzing several news stories from leading global media and the US. My academic analysis will focus on the fear factor that has been transferred from tragic events to the media and how the media has delivered them to the public. I will analyze stories that talk about fear in different levels. Fear of the expansion of ISIS. Fear that the countries will not be able to subdue the so-called Islamic State. Fear that Syrians refugees running from ISIS will bring seeds of terrorism to Western nations. In the analysis of the news stories, I will use theoretical lenses of cultivation, agenda setting, and news framing theories. Now I will give you some insight on ISIS. Recent Paris attacks have caused alarming fears and urgency about the group that is responsible for these attacks. Who is ISIS? What does the world need to know about them and how to deal with them? This terrorist organization, currently known by four names: ISIS, ISIL, the Islamic State, and Daesh. Daesh is the Arabic term and is mainly used in Europe among the Arab population. This terrorist group follows an Islamic ultra-fundamentalist ideology, gaining control over vast regions across Iraq and Syria. In this presentation, we will refer to this group as ISIS. ISIS started as part of Al-Qaeda, but after much conflict, it alienated itself in June of 2014. As BBC reports, ISIS pursues to eliminate hindrances to reinstating God's rule on earth and to preserve the Muslim community or Ummah against infidels or traitors. ISIS demands that Muslims across the world swear allegiance to its leader Ibrahim al-Radi al-Samari, better known as Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. ISIS has also told other jihadist groups worldwide that they must accept its supreme authority. As part of my research, I wanted to see how world media, including the US media, frame ISIS. What are the different types of fears being conveyed in news coverage? Are the media overreacting in regards to violence and threats from ISIS? For my research, I analyzed 12 news articles, 3 from Europe, 5 from the US, and 3 from the UK. The media outlets that I used for the Middle East is Asharq Al-Quds and the Daily Star. Additionally, I used articles from The Guardian, CNN, and The Washington Times. Furthermore, there are 3 major theories that exist in my stories. These are news framing, agenda setting, and cultivation setting theory. Among the many definitions of news framing, Robert Entman puts it quite simple. Framing essentially involves selection and salience. To frame is to select some aspect of perceived reality and make them more salient in a communicating text, in such a way to promote a particular problem, definition, casual interpretation, moral evaluation, recommendation for the item described. News frames are ideas repeated over and over to give the illusion of the importance to the audience. Once we understand how media chooses what stories to present, we will also focus on agenda setting. Journalism professors Maxwell Combs and Donald Shaw believe that mass media have the ability to transfer salience of items on their news agendas to public agendas. We have to look out for certain clues. We judge as important what the media judge as important. Nevertheless, we see that the news also displays a cultivation theory. The violence displayed on a screen can cultivate a social paranoia that counters the notion of trustworthy people or safe surroundings. According to Judge Grebner, Violence is one of the major staples of the TV world. Violence is the simplest and cheapest dramatic means to demonstrate who wins in the game of life and rules by which the game is played. Although there is no specific theory accounting for fear in news coverage, the theories of framing, agenda setting, and cultivation will help understand the salience of the fear in the media coverage. Three themes emerge from the news stories that demonstrate considerable amount of fear factor. These are fear in the limited power of nations to control this new threat and violence in the Middle East, fear of expansion, and fear of Syrian refugees. I found articles from CNN that show violence in the Middle East as a form to explain their ideas and policy to control the people. The Ashar al-Assad reports fear attacks in the form of violence of recent successes of ISIS in Syria and Iraq. ISIS contains the ideology of using violence to even teach children to kill as early as 5 years old. ISIS uses the children and the violent imagery affecting the way the audience interprets a set of events in the media. CNN uses the term kill and terrorism that in turn create negative emotions by the viewer. Fear of expansion is a recurring theme in my news articles that set a tone of anxiety and unrest. For example, an article from the New York Times shows criticism of ISIS growing and becoming stronger. One interviewee in the news story said, "With the establishment of the ISIS Caliphate state just 10 kilometers away from us, I am now afraid that these elements will reach us." The respondent added, "Particularly as the international community, which we were relying on, is not concerned with what is happening and may remain so, even if we were killed and displaced from our land." Another fear is the power of nations to control this new threat. Surrounding countries such as Libya fear ISIS will gain a foothold in their country. In the article from The Guardian, officials in Geneva fear they are losing a race against time to cobble together a peace plan before the Islamic State holds a firm foothold in their war-torn African country. Again, we see the theme of expansion. This country fears that it will have to give up and do. Libya is almost wholly dependent on cash from foreign reserves and are starting to run dry. Fear of expansion in Paris as well. In the recent attacks, media has caused certain awareness for Islamic people. The Guardian states, "Now for the first time I'm worried to travel on public transport after seeing clips of insults, of hearing of abuse my friends have gone through." According to New York Times, Brussels, the capital of Belgium in Europe, has remained closed for 3 solid days. Everything including schools, museums, government offices, public transportation, market shops, everything's closed. An interviewee added, "I can't do my shopping. I need to be careful when I leave the house. At the same time, I feel like the security measures are adding to this climate of fear." Another theme is the fear of increasing Syrian refugees in the US and surrounding countries. Recall cultivation theory suggests that exposure to television over time subtly cultivates viewers' perceptions of reality. Gerbner and Gross assert television is a medium of the socialization of the most people into standardized roles and behaviors. The theme of Syrian refugees not wanted in America is a direct example of this theory. One article best describes how can the American president be concerned over Syrians and Islam than its own nation. On another CNN article, the Council on American Islamic Relations said, "Defeating ISIS involves projecting American ideals to the world. Governors who reject those fleeing war and persecution abandon our ideals and instead project our fears to the world." American media has cultivated the stories to demonstrate that Syrians are a possible threat. In announcing that his state would not accept any Syrian refugees, Texas Governor Greg Abbott tweeted Monday on his personal account, "I demand the U.S. act similarly. Security comes first." After a recent release of an article from the Washington Times, the State Department has released a worldwide travel alert for Americans citing increased terrorism threats worldwide and advising U.S. citizens to avoid large crowds or crowded places. This threat alert will carry for over 3 months, especially during the holiday season. Cultivation theory at its best. Will the fear factor of a so-called Islamic State drive you? Until then, I will travel. I will live a normal life and I will fear not. I would like to thank you for joining me on my report on ISIS fear factor. The fear factor has been transferred from reality events to the media and how the media has delivered it to the public. This is Abraham Corona signing off.